Hey everyone, Casual Console Gamer here with another review. This time we'll be looking at Diablo 4 on the PlayStation 5. Full disclosure, this review will mostly be about the main campaign section of the game, only briefly touching on the endgame and the seasonal content. The too long didn't watch of Diablo 4 is that I love the return to the classic look and feel of the Diablo universe. The controls are responsive, the gameplay streamlined with how the abilities are selected and used. The story is engaging and entertaining, but the game is held back by server issues that result in horrendous lag and rubber banding, regardless of the time of day you play. While I can recommend Diablo 4 to returning fans and newcomers alike, it comes with the caveat that server instability and lag may affect or ruin your enjoyment of the game.
The blood of a demon.
Not just any demon. The daughter of hatred. The mother of sanctuary. She was banished ages ago. But this world is her creation.
I played Diablo 1 on release back in 1997 when I was just 10 years old. I remember booting up my Pentium 486 and being blown away. In 2000, Diablo 2 was unleashed upon the world, and I spent thousands of hours replaying it solo or in groups at LAN parties in my cousin's basement. But Diablo 3 turned me from the series. It felt sanitized and scrubbed compared to the art style of the older games, and changes in gameplay from Diablo 2, like the Real Money Auction House, was off-putting. Honestly, it felt like I was playing a game from an entirely different series made by a company other than Blizzard. So, I played through Diablo 3 and Reaper of Souls just once and never touched it again. But Diablo 4 was going to be different. The developers promised a return to darkness that would take them closer to the series' roots. And in that regard, Blizzard accomplished that exact thing. Before we get any deeper into the review, I need to talk about the technical state of Diablo 4. On PlayStation 5 in January of 2024, Diablo 4 is on its third season of content. I would love to say that the gameplay was smooth, and I had none of the issues that plague a Blizzard game on launch, such as trouble logging in or server problems, but I can't lie to you. During my entire playthrough, over 30 hours of main campaign and a few additional hours to try out some of the endgame content, I had constant lag and rubber banding. It was so bad that there were times when I would need to just wait a few full seconds before actions where my character, the enemies, and my summons would jitter on screen before the action shot ahead. You may be saying, well, that sounds kind of annoying but manageable. Why would you let that ruin your experience? It's because Diablo is the type of game that makes every second matter in combat. While you're stuttering, the enemies are still attacking you or surrounding your character, and at higher difficulties, that second can be the difference between winning a fight or dying. I died multiple times, particularly to bosses or large mobs, just from this lag. Each time I would be sent back with damaged equipment to try again. And rubber banding wasn't the only issue. I had trouble logging onto the server, requiring a full reset of my PS5. I had quests not work, requiring me to abandon them and then go back to the quest giver and try again. I got stuck on objects a few times. I had crashes that sent me to the home screen. Diablo 4 is an always online game. It requires you to be constantly connected to the internet in order to play. I hate playing online, but I can accept it if I have to. I don't really enjoy playing with other people, finding groups, or joining lobbies. I like to play in my own time and my own way. But like I said, I'll play online if I have to, but you're going to have to make sure that if it's online only, the least you can do is make sure that the servers work. And what benefit is there to the online? Blizzard gave the reason of building a community and joining other players, but the real reason it's online is so that they can cut down on piracy and have players show off their cosmetics, which we'll talk about in the microtransactions part of the review. So I understand why they want it to be online, it makes sense to me, but if you're going to have an online only game, it needs to actually function first. I tested the game during peak gameplay hours and off-peak. Early in the morning, late at night, during the day, weekday, weekends, it was bad all the time. It took something that I was enjoying and ruined it.
My children. The lords of hell are coming to devour our world. Salvation lies not in the light, but in you.
The art design is where Diablo 4 shines. Sure, the graphics are good, with light reflecting off puddles of water and blood, detailed buildings and environments, but it's the look and feel of the world that sticks with you after the credits roll, not how many frames per second I was getting or how many blades of grass I could see in 4K. Blizzard promised a return to darkness, recognizing that Diablo 3 had been a departure from the previous entries in the series. Sanctuary is supposed to be a world in its death throes, stuck between the forces of heaven and hell as they wage their eternal struggle, with humanity caught in the middle. Blizzard delivered on that promise. Diablo 4 feels like a progression art-wise of Diablo 2 rather than Diablo 3. What I mean by that is, I found Diablo 3 to be more cartoony. Not that I'm knocking that style, it's fine for what it is, but as a fan of Diablo 2, Diablo 3 felt like it was a PG-13 version of an R-rated movie. Diablo 4 leans far more into the gore and grotesqueness that plagues Sanctuary. The land is strewn with bodies and blood. The horror aspect smacks you in the face from the very start, and only gets worse as you explore. Many of the creatures you fight are returning from previous entries into the series, some with updated designs. And of course, a few familiar bosses make a comeback.
I saw a vision. A horned demon. She said the lords of hell are coming. She wanted to help the people survive.
Help them?
She called them her children. And they welcomed her like a mother.
Diablo has amazing lore. Different from a story, lore is everything in the game that builds the world and the characters that inhabit it. But its story was never anything groundbreaking. The first game had an incredible, simple story. There are characters in a town that's plagued by evil. You go in the church to fight the demon within it and seal it away. It's classic good versus evil, and it makes a perfectly serviceable story even if your character never says a single word. The second is about the same, but instead of traveling below a church to fight evil, you are moving east chasing after it. But the lore sets the series apart. Instead of the devil being in the basement of the Church of Tristram, it's Diablo, one of the prime evils. Tristram isn't located in medieval Earth, but in an entirely different universe, on a planet called Sanctuary. Sanctuary just isn't a planet where life evolved. It was created as a refuge by angels and demons that are tired of the eternal war between heaven and hell. The lore was revealed through conversations with characters, hidden in books and tomes found within dungeons and item descriptions. But here was the most important part. While the lore was deep and expansive, it wasn't necessary to understand it in order for the story to work. Take Diablo 1 for example. Does knowing that the warrior character coming to Tristram to fight Diablo because he is the son of the king matter to the story? Does it change anything? Not really. Story should be clean and easy to understand for the most part. While lore should be there to enhance the experience, maybe deepen a fan's knowledge of the world and its characters if they want to, it shouldn't be essential to the story. That's where Diablo 4 stumbles a bit. The lore has gotten so large and has become so essential to the story that you can't choose to ignore it without harming the storytelling. Going into Diablo 4, you need to know that heaven and hell exist, they are at war, it's a never-ending conflict with angels and demons fighting. Angels and demons both don't really like humanity for different reasons and want to destroy them, but they also kind of want to use them as well. And Anarius, an angel, and Lilith, a demon, created Sanctuary as a refuge for demons and angels to escape the war. Things were going along perfectly fine until they had a child. The Nephilim are the children of angels and demons. There's tons more lore, things happen, Lilith and Anarius are banished from Sanctuary, and then the 3 games happen. Enter Diablo 4. Sometime between the events of 3 and 4, presumably told through some video or lore snippet that I didn't read or watch, Anarius came back. That should be a good thing, right? Angels are good, so having an angel on Sanctuary should be a good thing. No. Angels aren't that good. Demons are bad, except Lilith might not totally be bad, even though she's evil. So now we have characters operating in the gray, and that makes a video game story less straightforward. Your character in Diablo 4 randomly gets involved in this conflict, and it's up to you and some Horadrim, who are mages that seal demons away, to stop Lilith. And Anarius too, I guess, even though he is good, but not really. Do you see the problem? As the story gets more complicated and more lore is introduced, it gets less clear-cut. No one in Diablo 4 is quote-unquote good, except maybe your character, potentially. You also need to know a lot about the last 3 games, which I played a decade ago, which is fine since Diablo 4 is a sequel, and you'd expect that. But there isn't a short video at the start of Diablo 4 to explain everything either, which would have been helpful, so you need to hop onto YouTube and search out a Diablo timeline before you play if you want to understand the story perfectly. That being said, the story isn't convoluted or anything. You can muddle your way through it without watching a recap, or if you missed the last game. But it would help. I don't want to give the impression that I didn't like the story in Diablo 4. It's quite the opposite. I thought it was fantastic for someone who loves the lore of the series so much. There are so many callbacks and nods to previous games, along with memorable moments that remain with you after the completion of the story. Plus, there's already more content announced that will continue the narrative forward, since it does end on a bit of a cliffhanger, which is a series staple at this point. Each game ends with a hint of the terrible things that are still coming, and that's perfect for the horrific setting of Diablo. Putting aside the obvious server issues and all the problems that came with it, I have to say I really enjoyed playing Diablo 4. Sure, it's a lot of mashing buttons and spamming attacks, but it's quick and satisfying. You get a lot of abilities to choose from, all with different effects and cooldowns. Each are mapped to a button on the controller, and I was really impressed with how well the targeting system worked. It was really intuitive. If I wanted to summon a skeleton, a body was automatically highlighted for me. If I wanted to attack a boss instead of a minion, I never had to consciously switch between them. It was the most fluid combat I had ever experienced in Diablo. It's decades away from hurting my finger clicking the mouse button from Diablo 1. The inventory system has been improved along with everything else. Playing Tetris with your items in Diablo 2 has been replaced with simple one-box inventory for items, so you can carry a lot more and never have to rearrange them to make more room. I will say, the equipment screen has taken a step towards unreadability that comes from overcomplication of systems. Some of the late game items take up your entire screen with effects. Each item comes with an item power level to let you know if it's better or worse than what you had, but if you're hunting a certain type of build, you'll be reading and doing the math on a lot of percentage indicators on your inventory screen. I love the changes to potions. I forgot how Diablo 3 did it, but I remember in Diablo 2 not being able to buy mana potions. Yes, I'm that old. You needed to pick up mana potions and hoard them in your inventory, taking away valuable slots for items. Diablo 4 generates potions in combat, and you can only carry so many. They are limited and timed, so you can't spam them like you could in the past games. It's perfect. No complaints. Yes, Diablo 4 is an open world game now, and this is where Diablo 4 falters the most. The open world balancing dilemma rears its head once again. How would Blizzard address it? Would they gate off areas with level requirements, meaning it was an open world, but restrict access to certain parts of it? Or would it be all open, but the XP you gain from enemies is minimal, like Elden Ring? No, Blizzard went with level scaling. Level scaling is the easiest and potentially laziest way of balancing an open world game. It means that it doesn't matter where you go or how much you grind, the world's enemies balance to your level. So if you're in an area as a level 2, then revisit it again as a level 40, the enemies match you. Do you see the problem with that? It makes progression and exploration pointless. Why would you go over to that far off area on the other side of the map instead of the one closer to town? The enemies are the same level. The rewards are exactly the same. To make matters worse, the level scaling is set to the world difficulty. At the start of the game, you can select from World Tier 1, which is normal or maybe easy, and World Tier 2. Tier 2 gives you more experience and a bit more money, but it's a bit harder. I chose Tier 2 and found it to be the perfect balance for difficulty. So these two world tiers have level scaling caps at level 50, meaning in Tier 1 and Tier 2, enemies can go up to level 50, then they stop. If you want to reach the level limit of 100 for your character, you need to unlock the next world tier, which gives more experience. World Tier 3 is unlocked after the main campaign. meaning you are encouraged to rush through the main storyline first before doing any of the other content. I don't think Blizzard intended that, but it's what ends up happening. I did the main story and maybe 24 side quests and beat the campaign at exactly level 50. If you're an explorer or a completionist, I have no doubt that you could reach level 50 in Act 1 since the world is mostly open to you at that point. If you do reach level 50, good luck leveling up much beyond that. Enemies just don't give you enough experience. You really need to get to World Tier 3. But the main storyline is 25 to 30 hours long, making it a breeze if you reach level 50 too early. Here's my advice. Just smash through the main story and don't touch any of the side quests until you finish it. You'll have a much better time. Plus, you don't get the horse until near the end of the game anyway, making the exploration better. There's a lot of backtracking, and you'll be grateful for a mount. It's obvious that Blizzard knew that the endgame would bring replayability and longevity to Diablo 4. There's even a skip campaign button on the main character's select screen. Diablo 4 is built around the endgame. New patches and updates are geared towards players who have completed the story and are grinding out levels for their characters or trying to find that perfect loot with the perfect roles for their build. I don't play the seasonal content. I'm a casual player who plays the story of a game, so I don't usually take a look at the post-game content. But if you're a player who does, Diablo 4 has hundreds of hours of content for you to work your way through. Especially when you want to level each of the game's 5 characters. I played the Necromancer, a favorite of mine in Diablo 2, and I absolutely enjoyed the way its skills and abilities worked. If you're planning to check out the endgame content, there's a ton of videos on YouTube discussing builds and patches and updates and all that good stuff. One of the best things about Diablo 4 that I've found is that respecting your skills is super cheap. Just a little bit of gold each time you refund means you can test different builds or work around a new piece of loot you picked up.
Break the chains and discover who you were meant to be. Break the chains and be beautiful in sin.
I may not remember the music from Diablo 3, but I sure do recall the first and second games, and those iconic scores return. But as fantastic as the music is, and it is awesome, it's the voice acting that stands apart from most of the games I've played. I'm going to try to avoid spoilers in some of the clips I'm playing in this review, but check out Lilith's voice. I don't know if the actress does ASMR content, but she should. I could listen to her read the dictionary out loud and love every minute of it. It just adds so much character to Lilith. She's supposed to be the seductive deceiver, and the actress really nails that tone.
Sin is their birthright.
Let's talk about microtransactions. There was a time long ago and far away that Blizzard would release a fully functional and amazing game with no microtransactions in it. Each game they released would go down in history. I don't know if World of Warcraft or one of the other games started the trend for Blizzard, but I do know that Diablo Immortal was the nail in the coffin. Thankfully, Diablo 4 doesn't have any of those pay-to-win mechanics, although I'm sure they would have loved to put that in there if they knew they could get away with it. Diablo may be the Lord of Terror in Sanctuary, but Diablo 4 is the Lord of Greed to Blizzard. There are cosmetics to be purchased for every class, along with horses and other skins. I remember when horse armor for a couple of dollars was one of the worst things in the world when Oblivion came out, but Diablo 4 is selling a set of horse armor for $10 Canadian. You want a complete outfit for your Necromancer? $33.99 Canadian. That's about $28 in the US. Wait, I'm sorry, it's not real money that you're buying it with. You have to purchase platinum for real money. Then you use that platinum to buy your skin, just so they can obscure the true cost a little. 2,800 platinum sounds better than $33.99 Canadian. And remember, that's just for one skin. There are 5 different classes, so get your credit card ready. There's also battle passes and all that good fun stuff that comes with that. Half the price of the game just for a single skin is ridiculous. Shame on you, Blizzard. But casual, you don't have to buy it, you may say, but the problem is that the regular armor that you get in-game often doesn't look very good. My character, even in endgame gear, looked like a punk rocker on their way to Burning Man. So you want to look cool? that'd be $33.99. I wish I could recommend Diablo 4 to everyone, but the server issues were just so off-putting to me that I can't say that you won't have the same problem. If that sort of thing doesn't bother you, I think you will enjoy the story and gameplay of Diablo 4. Just remember, if you aren't feeling the combat and the game after the first hour, it isn't going to change. What you're doing in the first hour is the same you're going to be doing in the 10th or even the 100th hour. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content.